In this episode of the Motor City Hypnotist podcast, we are still talking about therapy Q&A. Apparently, 2 episodes is not enough to get all this information out.
There's a lot of questions.
So this is part 3. If you've not listened to part 1 and 2, you can jump back and listen to those, or you can listen to this one and go back to those. We'll get it all covered. It'll all come together. And of course, we're giving away free stuff. Hang in there, folks. We'll be right back.
This sounds like something for the authorities in Detroit.
Well, joke's on you. I'm living to 102 and then dying, like the city of Detroit.
Guys like this antique over here out of Detroit.
Spawned in the hellfires of Motown.
Take him to Detroit.
No, not Detroit. No, please. Anything but that. No.
Stationed in Drambuie. It's worse than Detroit.
We did not have, as a unit, the confidence that we felt like we needed to beat Detroit.
Let's go to Detroit. Now you're talking, brother.
I don't think so. He plays for Detroit now.
Do they have many farms in Detroit?
Detroit. It's in Michigan.
I go to school. I know where Detroit is.
Get ready for the Motor City Hypnotist, David R. Wright, originating from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. He has hypnotized thousands of people from all over the United States. David R. Wright has been featured on news outlets all across the country and is the clinical director of an outpatient mental health and hypnosis clinic located just south of Detroit, where he helps people daily using the power of hypnosis. Welcome, the Motor City Hypnotist, David R. Wright.
What is going on, my friends? It is David Wright, the Motor City Hypnotist, and we are back with another episode of the Motor City Hypnotist podcast.
That's your bottom dollar, you are.
It is. That's Matt Fox, the other voice you hear.
Hello, David.
We're here live. If you're on Facebook Live on the Motor City Hypnotist Facebook page, you could be watching us right now.
You could be.
We're live here in the palatial Podcast Your Voice Southfield Studios.
And if you're on the Podcast Your Voice Facebook page, you could see it there too.
That's true. Yes. Go to the Podcast Your Voice Facebook page.
Yeah.
Not a Facebook page, it's a Facebook page. So yeah, you can watch it in either place. And also with Podcast Your Voice, there's a lot of other podcasts going on. So check the list out. You might find something that you might like.
No, I'll
check
like
it out.
Like this one.
But like this one for sure.
Yeah.
But you can always check out the other ones as well.
Yeah.
So it's great to be with you, folks. Let me tell you, first of all, where you can find me. My website is motorcityhypnotist.com. Check that out. As I've said, the last probably since the end of the year, our high school prom and grad night schedule is filling up quickly. So if you need entertainment, a hypnotist for your grad night or your post-prom party, go to my website. You can get a quote within minutes. Fill out your information. Hit send. You'll get a quote back within a couple of minutes. You can book it and sign it and pay online. Everything is online. You can have it done in just a few minutes. Check it out and really do it now because time is running out. My schedule is filling up really quickly, and we want to make sure you get the date that you want. So check that out. My social media links, Facebook and YouTube, are both Motor City Hypnotist, and Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok, which is still...
Is it still?
I guess it's going to be back. I don't know.
It's a thing.
What I saw on social media today is that it's back.
Oh, that's because that's real. That's fake news.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But
I don't do the tickety talk.
So anyway, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok are all Motor City Hypno, HYPNO. Check those out. Follow me on social media. Just to be upfront and honest, TikTok I just started working on within the last couple of weeks. I know it's not great timing with the impending closure or shutdown, but it looks like that's not going to happen. So whatever, check it out. We'll build that out more if it stays around. we'll work on that some more. We'll see. And as we've done on every episode, going back to number 1, and we're on episode 289 today, I believe.
Woo.
Free hypnosis guide. It's a PDF that I wrote. It just gives you an overview. It's not an in-depth like a book. It's a 2-page PDF, but it kind of gives you the overview of what hypnosis is, what it's not, dispels some myths and misconceptions. So check that out. You can get it for free by texting the word hypnosis to 313-800-8510. And if you need that information, it will be in the show notes, or you can go right to my website, motorcityhypnotist.com.
Perfect.
That's the phone number that's on the website. So text the word hypnosis there. You'll have your PDF in a couple of minutes, and it will also ask for a review. Now, here's the thing. You can review a show if you've seen it. You can review the podcast. Either way, it goes to my Motor City Hypnotist Google account for reviews.
Perfect.
So greatly appreciate if you leave a review. That's the big thing, because it just helps us get out to other people and again, grow the podcast, which is what we want to do.
Yep.
All righty.
Is it time?
It is time. It is time.
Oh.
That's how winning is done.
Yes. Okay. What do we got
All right,
today?
this is kind of a wild story.
Okay.
So I'll just give you the title of the story and then we'll get into it.
I'm dialed in.
A truck driver intervenes in a highway shootout, wins Goodyear Highway Hero Award.
Goodyear's Highway Hero Award.
Yeah.
I never knew there was such a thing.
I didn't either. The thing that struck me is the first line of this: truck driver intervenes on highway shooting. Like, wow, what?
Okay.
That headline makes me want to read more. Of course. A New York timber trucker.
Oh, that explains it.
New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll do anything there. A New York timber trucker has been recognized as a highway hero after using his 18-wheeler to help corral a shooter who had injured a police officer.
Jeez.
It happened that on Interstate 88 in June, Timothy Van Nostrand was preparing to pass a state trooper who was approaching a car he had just pulled over.
Okay.
Van Nostrand is the owner and operator of his own logging transport company in Northville, New York, and is well acquainted with dangerous work, although the risks he faces don't typically involve gunfire. Excuse me. It happened so fast, Van Nostrand told Fox News. I wasn't 100% sure what I saw at first, but I saw the trooper kind of skip sideways a little bit. Then Van Nostrand explains he saw the driver draw his gun and start shooting out of the back window of his car at the trooper, which started a 12-minute ordeal where bullets were flying.
While he's driving?
Van Nostrand then pulled his logging truck in front of the shooter's car, cornering him against the side of the road and ensuring the shooter was stopped. Fox didn't specify if he was taken into custody, wounded, or killed by the troopers in the eventual backup that arrived. Van Nostrand was later honored by the New York State Police and by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company as a highway hero.
Wow.
I guess that's where the Goodyear award comes in. I
no
never
idea.
knew that existed. The Goodyear Highway Hero Award is one way Goodyear recognizes the importance of commercial trucking industry, which helps move 72.5% of the U.S. economy's goods. According to American Trucking Associations. Joe Burke, vice president of Goodyear North America Commercial Business, told Fox News Digital. The purpose of the Highway Hero program is to bring more awareness and appreciation to the powerful impact that commercial drivers can have on the roads, individuals' lives, and communities. Van Nostrand was awarded a cash prize and a ride in the Goodyear blimp.
During what
Hopefully
game?
there's no shooting up there.
Jeez,
Yeah,
right?
not in a blimp.
I've watched enough 007 to know that's go on.
Yeah.
What in blazes are you talking about?
I don't know. I just picture a blimp and I always think of Hindenburg. I don't know why. That's just the way it goes. Van Nostrand was awarded a cash prize and a ride in the Goodyear blimp. He told Fox that it felt like such a long time when you're sitting there listening to gunfire, allowing plenty of time for second guesses, but it turned out it was the right decision. Most of the people I know and work with would do the same thing, he said. We all look out for each other, and 99% of us are looking out for everybody else too.
I love it.
So that is the story. So I'm going to get his first name, Timothy Van Nostrand, the truck driver. Good job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Step
risking
up.
your life
Yeah.
to pin this guy down to save this trooper. Fantastic story.
Wow.
Definitely winner.
That's how winning is done.
So Dave.
Yes.
You can go right. We can get back to it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So,
All right.
back to it.
You want to get that out of the way?
I had to get that out of the way.
Yeah, right.
So when you said that Timothy Van Nostra was a timber truck driver, the first thing that came across my mind after hearing the title of the article, there's a little movie called Final Destination.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen it?
Yep.
And
absolutely.
It wasn't there a piece of timber on a freeway somewhere. That's what went into my mind when I'm like, probably even the shooter was like, no, I'm just gonna stop. I don't want that coming at me.
Right.
No,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah. No.
Interesting. I'll give you another sidebar, probably something very more obscure than Final Destination, but it's a Stephen King novel, the Gunslinger series, the Dark Tower series.
Okay.
There's this whole sequence where this logging truck, there's this gunfight going on in this gas station between the gunslinger and this bunch of hoodlums.
Okay.
A bunch of hooligans, if you want to call them that.
This sounds like something for the authorities in Detroit.
Are we gonna listen to the whole
Joke's
thing?
on you. I'm moving to 102 and then
back
die
up. We're
at
gonna
the city of Detroit.
Guys like this.
Hit the wrong one.
There you
Sorry.
go.
Let
No,
that
you're
play through. So anyway, in the Stephen King story, the series of novels, there is a scene where they're having a shootout at this gas station with a bunch of hoodlums and the gunslinger. In this logging truck comes by and skids, and all the logs come flying off of the truck.
Oh boy.
And taking out some of the henchmen, if you want to
hoodlums.
call it that, the hoodlums, if you want to call them that. Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh,
Hold
it's
on.
a long one.
I know it's a long one. We're gonna get there because I gotta.
He plays.
Dang it.
No, that's what I thought of. I thought of, timber truck. I'm thinking freeway. I'm thinking gun shooting things going off. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and he's fighting a bunch of hooligans.
This sounds like something for the authorities.
I hit the right button. It's misaligned. Something's
no.
off on my soundboard.
All
Never
right.
mind. We'll get back to it.
We'll come back to it.
So anyway, we're talking today. We're continuing with our therapy Q&A. We'll get off the logging thing for a while.
We're
get off
done
of
with that. Yes. We're done with that.
It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. So we covered in the last episodes some of the things we talked about, and you can go back and jump on those if you want. Why should I speak to a therapist instead of a friend?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about
getting prepared.
How do I know when to see a therapist?
Right.
How do I find a therapist? How much does therapy cost?
I remember all that. Yes.
Does my insurance cover therapy?
Yes.
We talked about that.
Yes.
And then we talked about doing therapy online. And then we talked about what type of therapist. Then we went through the flow chart as far as licensing. And see, here's the thing. Most people will see a person, especially if they're a medical professional, there's a bunch of initials after their name.
Right.
Nobody knows what those things mean. I will tell you, just to re-emphasize on that last one that we ended on last week, is that anybody who's a therapist is at least has a master's degree in some sort of either psychology, social work, or counseling.
Right.
So they're all master's level clinicians. So that's the main thing to take from that. So we're going to start today by going on to our next question, which is, how should I prepare for my first therapy session? And actually, that is a question that probably is not asked by a lot of people. Typically, they go and they just think, oh, I need to see a therapist. I'm just going to go. But there are some things that you can do to prepare yourself. Now, we talked about in one of these categories about being honest. That's number one.
Yep.
Prepare to be honest when you go. But here's a whole thing that you can do ahead of time before your first session. Make a list. Make a list of specific topics and issues that you want to cover that you feel like that you're having a hard time with. So what happens typically when you go in to meet a therapist, you're meeting a stranger for the first time. You meet them, you sit down, and then you start talking. And a lot of people, it takes a while to get comfortable, especially if it's a therapist you've never met before. Again, it's a stranger essentially, and you're now revealing your deepest, darkest issues and secrets, and that can't be easy sometimes. So writing down a list will keep you on track and keep you focused on the things that you want to address. So say that you're having feelings of depression and anxiety, or maybe you have anger issues. It's important to address those right in the beginning, right up front, because this is what will happen in a therapy session. The intake is a lot of questions. It's a lot of gathering information from the client. So me as a therapist, I try to gather as much information as I can in that intake session, and then we can use that to develop goals later to address during our therapy time together, however long that lasts.
I think we may have spoken about it, but don't wait until you're at the last straw.
Well, that's a great point, Matt. And that's one thing that it's not really spelled out in the list I have, but that is a good one, because most of the time, I'll be honest, most of the time, once we get a call, people are in crisis.
Right.
Typically. Not always, a lot of times. A lot of times it's like they've tried, or whatever they've tried. They may have tried nothing. It doesn't matter. But the point is that most people call to get therapy when things are really at the crisis mode.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're right. Get in earlier.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can say it.
Mm-hmm.
Because listen, and I say this to clients every day, everybody's effed up. Everybody has issues they can deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can benefit from talking to a therapist. So don't wait till a crisis to address this, because a lot of these crises can be averted if you are proactive in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it ahead of time, just to make sure you're in a good headspace and a good emotional space to deal with issues that are happening to you or in the world.
Right. And that's a great way to prepare.
Absolutely.
For therapy is just be prepared, find one that you are comfortable with, so you're not having to interview.
That's the other issue, that you have to find the right therapist, and we'll get into that. That's actually the next one coming up.
Okay.
We're going to talk about.
All right, good.
But the other thing, as far as preparing, you have to speak your mind in therapy. You have to say how you're feeling. Now, this can be a challenge for a lot of people, because in some ways it's a sign of weakness to say, oh yeah, I'm really sad, or I'm really angry, or I'm really frustrated. So, and especially, and I'm going to make a generalization. Men don't hit me or anything, but typically with men, that's a much harder thing to do.
Sure.
Just talk about emotions. Typically, generally, there are exceptions to every rule, but typically women are better at talking about emotions.
Oh yeah.
So for men, just be prepared that this is the place to share your emotions. This is a place that we can help you.
For a man, a generalization here.
Mm-hmm.
For men, it's difficult to talk about emotions.
Yep.
It's not because we don't have them.
Oh, no.
It's because it's tough for men to verbalize how they feel, because they have all these thoughts and feelings, and opinions about certain things, but they can't verbalize how they feel.
Right.
Seeing a therapist, talking to somebody will help you to learn how to verbalize and to really get your message across.
Absolutely.
If you will.
Yes. And the whole idea of therapy is to get you to a better place, so that one, you can communicate better. That's another big thing. Is a lot of mental health issues have to do with communication and not expressing how you feel, especially in relationships.
Oh yeah.
Or especially in family situations. So just be prepared. You need to speak your mind, and you need to tell the therapist what you're feeling. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And this is the other dynamic that happens sometimes. You'll have a client come in, and they'll be a little bit closed off, because they're like, I don't know if I can trust this person or not.
Sure.
Yet. And so you may spend a couple of sessions building rapport and building trust. That's fine. That you need to have that with a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't get to that point, then it's time, and we'll talk about it in the next section. Am I with the right therapist?
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a question. But the big thing is that you need to go into it open-minded, honest, and ready to talk about the things that are bothering you.
I love that.
Yes. So the next question leading into that, how do I know if I've chosen the right therapist? And that's a question a lot of people have, because they'll call a place like I'll talk about our facility, because that's the one I know, because I own it and I run it. We have 10 therapists on our staff right now. So somebody calls in, they say, yeah, I'm dealing with depression, or I'm dealing with anxiety. They get assigned to a therapist. Now, that's just based on availability and schedule and issues.
Sure.
Because most therapists deal with anxiety and depression, the general type things. There are very specific therapists that deal with childhood abuse or traumatic PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, or something like bipolar, where you're having these big big swings as far as depression and mania. But for the most part, the therapist that you're seeing, you have to connect with them on a personal level, and that may not happen. And it's not a therapist's fault. It's not the client's fault. Sometimes two people just don't click together.
Sure.
So the big thing, how to know if you've chosen the right therapist. And again, it's important to feel comfortable and feel open in these sessions. So I'm going to give you a couple things. If you dread going to therapy, if you dread your sessions, it can be a red flag. Not necessarily, because here's the thing with therapy. We know we're going to be talking about serious things. We know we're going to be talking about things that are painful, some things that are hurt, that make you feel bad. But that's kind of the point of it. So you have to be ready about that. So if you're constantly dreading going to therapy, or you're constantly canceling, you have to ask yourself why. What's the issue here? Am I not ready to change? Am I not committed to this? Or do I not feel comfortable with the therapist I'm seeing? That's a perfectly valid question.
But don't use that as an excuse every single time.
Well, and that's the whole thing, because if it's not clicking with the therapist you're seeing, it's on you as the client to say to whatever facility you're going to, I'm not feeling it with this therapist. Can I get somebody else?
Sure.
That's believe me, not enough people do that. They feel like they're stuck with who they were given.
Right.
And if it's not working, they don't feel that they can make changes or switch therapists. But as a client, it's incumbent on you to make the choice that's best for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're excited for sessions, if you're looking forward to seeing your therapist, that's a good thing, because you feel like you're getting somewhere. It feels like you're making progress. It feels like you're making change. And when you have productive sessions, that just kind of reinforces that, I'm making progress here. I feel like things are changing. And that's definitely something that you need to feel in therapy.
Can I ask you a very layman term?
Absolutely.
Or layman question? So typically men are more comfortable with a male therapist, and female are more comfortable with a female therapist, or does it really matter? Or is it just based on that rapport that you build?
It's based on rapport. And again, this is not a one size fits all or generality. A lot of women prefer to speak to men. Now, there can be all kinds of, it'd be interesting, and I may look for this to see if there are any studies done on whether female and male clients prefer a gender when they go to therapy.
I'm curious. I was just thinking.
Like, for example, I have a lot of clients, and this kind of fits into the population and as a whole. More women go to therapy than men. It's just that's just the data.
Okay.
That's what the data tells us. A lot of women want to speak to a male therapist. Now, that could lead back to maybe they had father issues growing up. Maybe they having issues with their spouse. I see a lot of women in my practice, and for them to have and this is not pumping myself up. I mean, I'm not like bragging or anything.
Good for you.
But a lot of women want to have a good male interaction.
Okay.
So for them, that is something they prefer. Now, a lot of times, people have a preference. My therapist is a woman, but it wasn't I wasn't thinking I want a woman or I want a man. To me, it didn't matter.
No, and when I was seeing a therapist, it was a male, and I could have gone either way.
Sure. And for me, I don't have a different. I mean, I don't have necessarily a preference. I just want somebody who's good. Yeah, absolutely. So knowing if your therapist is a good fit, that is the main thing. Whether it's man or woman, it doesn't matter. Even if it's their personality you just don't like, for you have to take care of yourself.
Sure. And as a therapist yourself, I'm sure you have a cadence of questions that you ask a new client every time. Are there any questions, like a cadence that a patient would have to get to know their therapist a little bit better, so they can be more honest?
No, that's good. So let me give you my spiel first.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you kind of what clients might say. So for me, anytime I have a new client, I always emphasize, listen, there's nothing, you're not abnormal, so to speak. And I always say normal doesn't exist in therapy.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Typical might exist, but that's not the same thing.
Sure.
I don't think anyone's normal per se. Everybody has something that they can improve on or work on. So that's the first thing. And then as far as what I say to them, I'm like, listen, during this process, we need to have a working relationship. So if at any point you feel like I'm just not feeling it, or I don't feel like this is working, I always tell clients, I tell them specifically, you need to tell me this isn't working so that I can get you to somebody who you can click with.
Or if the direction you're going is not working, if the patient says this isn't really working, okay, help me understand so you can pivot and move in a different direction.
Yes. With more information, we can take a different approach. Right. Absolutely. And again, that's incumbent on the client to say, I don't feel like this is working. So it can either be an issue with the therapist. It could be an issue with how therapy's going.
Sure.
But definitely the client is in control. The client dictates where we're going, and you have to speak up as a client if something's not working for you.
And because you've built that rapport, you're comfortable with your
Absolutely.
therapist. You know, Mr. Mrs. It just doesn't feel like I'm this direction that I'm going is the best fit.
Yeah.
Can we make a change? Can we go in a different direction? And as a therapist, you should be, yes, absolutely.
No, yes.
Which direction do you feel you need to go in?
Here's the catch on that, Matt. And I've seen it. A lot of therapists take it personally. And I've said, we have a lot of therapists. We have 10 therapists in our office.
Yeah.
Some are younger, some are older, some are just starting out. We have an intern that just started with us a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So with somebody like an intern, I say to them, listen, you're the professional. I know you just finished school. You're not licensed yet, but you're in the end stage of your degree. You're in the end stage of being licensed. So you're the professional. A lot of times with therapists, the problem is the therapists are not confident. And if the therapist is not confident, it's not going to work well with a client.
They need to see somebody about building up their
Yes,
confidence.
absolutely. And again, I am a 1000% believer that every therapist should have a therapist.
Yeah, absolutely.
I because of what we deal with every day, we deal with people with different issues and different things and all of these things coming at you. You need to have somebody for you to talk to keep your own mental health up to date.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're in poor mental health, you're not going to be able to help the people you're seeing.
Right.
That's a key. So yeah, make sure your therapist is a good fit. If it's not, you need to speak up and say, we need to do something different, or I need a different therapist.
Yep.
The next question is, how do I keep making progress in therapy? So here's kind of a scenario that happens fairly often. I wouldn't say a majority of the time, but a good percentage. People will come in, they'll come for 2 or 3 sessions, and then they just disappear.
Well, okay.
So, and it's hard. And typically what we'll do is we'll try to, reach out. The therapist typically will reach out and say, hey, I haven't seen you in a few weeks. What's going on? You want to make an appointment? Sometimes they'll just say no. So a lot of times people will get into therapy, and for whatever reason, and there are some reasons, and I can throw a couple of those out in a moment, but you have to work through the whole process of therapy. Now, I'm not saying 3 sessions are not going to benefit you. They could very well benefit you.
Sure.
They could. But at some point, you have to feel like I've achieved something, or I've reached the goals that I'm looking for. So with every client and every therapist, we have a treatment plan, and we have goals in those treatment plans. And maybe that goal is, okay, client will report, will evaluate their level of depression on a 10-point scale, 1 being not at all, 10 being the absolute worst.
Okay.
So a goal might be, or an objective might be, client will go 3 months with a level of 4 or less on the depression scale. Just so it's something that we can evaluate. So if you go those, a month and you're still at a 7 or an 8, then you got to kind of see, well, is this really working? Is this going to help me at some point. I mean, you just have to kind of look and say, if there's not progress, then we need to change something.
Sure.
Yeah. So as far as making progress, the important things are sticking with it. Therapy is going to be uncomfortable at times.
Sure.
Because you're talking about emotions, you're talking about events, especially people who have had past traumas, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, people who have bipolar disorder or major depression and have suicidal attempts or have been hospitalized. Therapy is going to be a long-term process for a lot of these clients.
Sure.
So the important thing is that you stick with it. As long as you have the right therapist and you feel like it's helping, stay the course. Now, that might be 6 months. It might be 5 years.
Sure.
Every client's different. Some clients need to have a therapist all the time, and that's fine because it's their self-care ritual. So I have clients that I've been seeing for years. We realize that they're probably, I say this very carefully, they're probably never going to get to where they want to be. But if they're not in the space they were, they're better.
I don't have a medical degree. Okay. I never claimed I to be a doctor. But you said stay the course. I almost want to say stay your course because you're in charge of your own therapy.
Absolutely.
You get out of it what you put into
Absolutely.
it. That's where being honest, being prepared, knowing what you want to approach and talk about, and then have the moral dexterity to say, this isn't working, doc, and I really appreciate your work. Can we talk? Can we move in a different direction?
Absolutely.
And that's on the patient.
Yes.
So that's why you stay your course.
Yep. Absolutely. So we talk about making progress. So one of the things that a lot of therapists will do, including myself, is we'll give homework assignments. I'll say, okay, for somebody who's depressed, I'll say, okay, listen, we know it's not feasible for you to go to the gym every day for 2 hours. That's just not, it's just too much.
You can try.
So what I say to people is, I want you to take 15 minutes a day and just walk. Just get out of your house, get out of your room, get out of your apartment, wherever you're at, and just walk for 15, 20 minutes.
In -4 wind chill.
Well, today might be an exception, but you know what I'm saying.
Get a treadmill.
Yeah.
No, don't shut me up.
But so if I give somebody that homework assignment and I talk to them the next week, I'm like, well, how is your walking been going? Oh, I didn't do it. So it's incumbent, again, I use that word 3 times now, on the client to follow through on these homework assignments because they're there for a reason. Now, you might say, oh, what's a 15-minute walk going to do? It will do something. We're starting to change behaviors is what we're trying to do. And we start that in small increments.
And the question is, well, help me understand why you neglected.
Why you didn't?
Why did you neglect to?
I'll give you an answer, Matt, that comes back many times. I'm too depressed.
But you're there for a reason.
Well, no, I get it. But here's the struggle. Here's the back and forth. If somebody's severely depressed, they have zero motivation, zero. It's everything they can do to get out of bed. So I understand the difficulty in it, but this is the pattern that we're trying to interrupt. Is this pattern that we're trying to change? Is that, listen, just give me 15 minutes. That's it. That's where we're starting. Now, if I come back in a week and somebody says, yeah, I've been walking every day for 15 or 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, let's bump that up to 30 minutes. And then we're going to add some other things as we go along.
Sure.
So we're building upon, we're trying to build habits that are going to help people feel better. So to make good progress in therapy, you need to follow up on these homework assignments. As difficult as they may be, there's a purpose for them.
Follow through.
Yes. Another good way to continue good progress in therapy is to be consistent with your therapy sessions. Again, people might not just disappear, but they might be like, I've had this with clients, and honestly, I'll use my own example here. I'll use a personal example.
Okay.
I see my therapist every other week. I had to cancel because I was sick at the beginning or second week of December, then the holidays, then the new year, then back to work. So I've been like 6 weeks off of my therapist.
Okay.
So And me as a therapist, I'm saying this because this happens to people all the time. They get busy, they get overwhelmed, they stop coming, even though they know they should be coming. You have to stay consistent with your therapy sessions.
Right.
That is the big thing. And I want to go back to the point, and I think I hit a little bit on this, but sometimes therapy is not pleasant. Sometimes you're going to be, a good therapist is going to point out flaws in thinking or flaws in behavior.
Flaws is a harsh word. I want to say challenge.
Better, Matt. Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
They'll point out challenges.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get your therapist should challenge you.
Yes.
Right. And if they're not challenging you to change behaviors, change habits, then at what point you're like, okay, this is not working. I'm not being motivated enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it sometimes, yes, it's going to fall on the patient.
Sure.
Right. But is the therapist not challenging you enough as the patient to get better?
And this is the conversation that has to be had in therapy. Therapy is not a one-way street.
No,
it's a client and the therapist interacting and together figuring out what is going to be the best course of action.
Love that.
What is going to take us forward and get better.
Yeah.
That is the whole thing. It's a collaboration. It's not one person. Therapists don't have answers.
I thought
listening to you no more.
I thought that's why we were sitting here, man.
No, I mean, therapists don't have any answers. The thing is that we're trained to help people find their own answers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. We don't have the answers. We help you find your answers. That is therapy. And if a therapist is telling you what to do,
mm-hmm.
that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Just proceed with caution.
Sure.
Is what I'll say. So the big thing with therapy, as far as just being committed to it,
mm-hmm.
that's the big thing. Here's the thing. When people come to therapy, typically they're not happy. That's what drives people to therapy. They're not happy for whatever reason, whether it's a relationship, whether it's their own self-esteem, whether it's their own life issues or
mm-hmm.
things that are happening. And I don't say this in a condescending manner, but life is a series of experiences. Some are good, some are bad. That's just the way life goes. So you have to be able to deal with the bad things
mm-hmm.
because they're going to be there. They're
mm-hmm.
going to happen. You can't avoid that in life.
No.
You're going to lose people to death. You're going to have arguments and falling outs with relationships. That's going to happen.
Sure.
It's a fact. You're going to have challenges financially. You're going to have challenges with your job sometimes.
Sure.
These are normal life events. And when I say normal, I'm saying typical. But these things are going to happen. So how can we equip you to handle those negative things when they come up? That is the key thing, because they will come up. You can't avoid them.
Yeah.
And many people they'll, instead of addressing those issues, they'll withdraw.
Sure.
They'll back off and just say, I can't handle it. I'm not going to do anything, which honestly, most of the time that makes things worse.
Yeah.
Inaction is the same as sabotage.
Sure. Yeah, I want to quote one of my more favorite folks from the DJ industry.
Yes.
And it's in the immortal words of Casey Kasem.
Oh, Casey Kasem.
Keep your feet on the ground
Yeah.
and keep reaching for the stars.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand that you have to stay grounded, but you have to always strive to want to get better.
And that is the big thing. And that's the biggest thing when you're talking about therapy, is that you called and made this appointment because you're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
You're not happy with what things are. So something has to change. And that is the big thing with people. They'll come to therapy, but they don't realize, oh, I have to change.
Yeah.
And that sometimes freaks people out.
No, I'm perfect, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you are, man. But, it's crazy. I don't know what happened.
Like this in the background.
Thank you for that.
What the fuck is it with you?
I know everyone's effed up, man. I get that.
Everybody is. Yes. It's just a fact. That's how life works.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be able to get you through life in the best way possible, to live your best life. That's what a therapist is there for. And if they can help you, that is the key thing. And you have to take ownership of your own mental health. The therapist is not the answer. The therapist helps you to get to the answer.
Stay your course.
Stay the course. Do what you need to do to get yourself better. All righty.
Oh man,
that's it, Matt.
That was intense.
Yeah, that was intense. That wraps up therapy Q&A.
Man,
this was part 3, 4.
That was part 3.
Part 3.
Yeah.
That was part 3. So we're good with therapy Q&A. We're going to be back next week. I have a special guest next week. Terica Lewis is a therapist in my office. She's a certified sex therapist.
Oh, fun.
She's going to be in the studio next Monday night, and we're going to talk about sex.
Okay. Well, game on.
That's a great tease, isn't it?
But I'm pumped. Well, I'll just have to.
Oh, great Odin's Raven.
I'll have to start selling tickets then. So.
Sexy time.
Yeah.
I'll have to start selling tickets so we can have an audience.
There we go. Well, we're going to have an audience on Facebook Live because Terica's a good friend of mine. We've been working together for 10, 15 years. She's a great, best therapist in my office. We will.
One of the best. Yes.
Yes. One of the best.
Yes.
Yes. She's great. I love her. So before we go,
who is it?
Little Bit.
Little Bit what?
Little Bit is the name of this dog.
Are you
from
kidding
the
me?
Detroit Dog Rescue. It's a retriever mix, female. She'll be 60 to 70 pounds, full grown. She's dog friendly, yes. Kid friendly, yes. Cat is unknown. She was born October 2024. So still 4 months old.
Yeah. Oh,
there's a little
my
bit.
Goodness. Holy chamoly. I'm sorry. I was looking at the white fur thing. That's not the dog.
Thing? No,
that's not the dog.
dog.
Okay, I got
That's
it.
her toy.
Okay. I'm just kidding. Little Bit. That is, I've never heard the name.
Matt. I know. I've never heard that name before. That's a
Little Bit.
Come here,
Little Bit. Little Bit. Where are you? Little Bit.
I'm gonna rest for a little bit.
Dinner time, Little Bit. Come and get a kiss, Little Bit.
What kind of stupid wiener name is that?
A little bit.
So Little Bit needs a home. She's at DetroitDogRescue.com/adopt. Check it out. Little Bit. She wants a home. She wants somebody to snuggle with and play with her white lamb.
Those ears are just.
I know.
That left ear, her right ear is just killing me.
I know.
It's so cute.
Yeah, it's so great. All right, DetroitDogRescue.com/adopt. Little Bit. She needs a home.
Little Bit.
Go get her.
Yes.
All righty, folks. We are done. Join me next episode and next week on Facebook Live as we're going to have Terica Lewis in the office, my therapist I work with. She's a certified sex therapist.
Can she sit next to me?
And she can.
Okay.
She can sit right there, man. Yep. Fantastic.
I can start selling tickets. I'm excited for next week.
What are you people? On dope?
I don't know if she'll want to sit next to me.
No, she'll be fine.
All right.
All right. All righty, folks. Change your thinking, change your life, laugh hard, run fast, be kind. We'll see you next time.